This is Arkies in the Beltway, your look at national politics and the Arkansans influencing the discussions. I'm Alex Thomas, Washington correspondent for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, reporting from the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of October 13th, 2024. This week, we're continuing our look at the 4 congressional races in Arkansas, hearing from the 2 candidates in the Natural State 2nd District contest, Republican incumbent French Hill and Democratic challenger Marcus Jones. Hill has served in the U.S. House of Representatives since January 2015. The 2nd District, which includes Little Rock and surrounding communities in central Arkansas, has been the topic of discussion following the state legislature's redistricting work. Critics say Republican lawmakers split Pulaski County into multiple districts, diluting the influence of black voters in central Arkansas. When the Democrat-Gazette asked Hill and Jones about why they are the best person for the 2nd District, both pointed to their backgrounds. Hill of Little Rock made note of his experience before his arrival on Capitol Hill nearly a decade ago.
I believe that my longtime private sector experience as an entrepreneur and the CEO of a local community bank, as well as my service as the president of the Rotary Club of Little Rock and the chairman of the Regional Chamber of Commerce in Little Rock, prepared me to be very attuned to the challenges and opportunities on how the federal government, the local government, and the private sector can partner to benefit Central Arkansas.
The bank that Hill referenced is Delta Trust and Bank. Hill served as its chairman and CEO until Simmons Bank acquired Delta in 2014. As for Jones, also of Little Rock, he mentioned his nearly 3 decades of military experience. He entered the congressional race last October, just days after retiring from the U.S. Army as a colonel.
I was stationed all over the world and was fortunate enough that my last assignment brought me and my family to Little Rock. There are only a couple of colonel assignments in the state for a regular Army officer, and I was fortunate enough to get one. And I did not see Arkansans being represented in Washington, and I didn't see opportunity being delivered back to the 2nd District.
Jones's time in the Army included deployments to Iraq and Kuwait, as well as serving as program director of NATO's Joint Warfare Center in Norway.
I have lived that. I have served in those alliances.
One of Hill's responsibilities in the House involves the House Financial Services Committee, which is responsible for handling matters affecting financial policy, banking and housing, and issues with agencies like the Treasury Department. Hill serves as the committee's vice chairman and leads its subcommittee handling digital assets and financial technology.
The vast majority of all the productive resources of our country are in the hands of the private sector. And to make those resources grow and prosper, meaning that our families have higher wages, more career opportunities, more choice about where they live and where they work, that requires capital.
If Hill wins his re-election bid, he could take on a new responsibility, committee chairman. The current chair, North Carolina Republican Patrick McHenry, is retiring at the end of his current term, opening the top Republican spot on the committee next January. Hill wants the job.
I am spending a great deal of time working and preparing an agenda for the House Financial Services Committee should the House Republican leadership select me to be the next Republican leader of that committee.
Jones is hoping voters understand what his military background brings to the race, not just when it comes to foreign policy, but veterans issues at home.
I understand what it's like to file a claim with the VA in April and then finally find out the following January what that decision is. That has an impact on people's lives.
Jones, like Hill, is considering his policy goals for the next Congress if he does win next month. One of those, supporting healthcare policies like the Affordable Care Act and expanding access to services like Medicare and the ACA's insurance marketplace.
I grew up in Jonesboro, and you always knew somebody was really sick if they either had to come to Little Rock or go to Memphis. You know, that more specialty care was in a bigger city. Things have changed since then, and we do have hospitals now throughout the district, but we don't have enough. If we don't do what we can to ensure that we protect those programs I talked about, we won't have specialty care in those places.
During his interview with the Democrat-Gazette, Jones took exception with Hill's stance on the House's process for getting funds for community projects. Members can request federal dollars for local projects, commonly referred to as earmarks, as part of Congress's annual appropriations process. Hill, as well as Senator Tom Cotton of Little Rock, oppose this mechanism. Jones says Hill is neglecting Central Arkansas by not taking part.
This is a nonpartisan function, and it is representative of what taxpayers in Arkansas should be getting back out of their tax dollars.
Regarding his opposition to earmarks, Hill explains Congress needs to find better ways to fund local projects while also controlling discretionary spending. He adds he has still worked on improving the 2nd District without needing these earmarks, noting such efforts as work expanding the Port of Little Rock for economic development.
It's a philosophical issue for me, and I also believe that each member can very effectively support their district, the counties in their district, without being dependent on that technique.
Hill and Jones are now in the final stretches of their campaigns. When both men won their primaries in March, with Hill and Jones both running unopposed, voters thought the top item on this November's ballot would be a rematch between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. The presidential race changed dramatically over the summer, with Biden dropping out and Vice President Kamala Harris becoming the Democratic Party's torchbearer. Jones sees potential for an upset, thanks in part because of Harris leading the Democratic ticket.
We always knew that women voters were going to be very important in this race. Now we see that even more, renewed energy amongst women voters. We see that in a big way amongst young voters who are excited about this ticket and about that change, and we see that with many minority voters. And so all of that is good for us here in Central Arkansas.
If Hill is feeling any pressure stemming from Harris as the Democratic presidential nominee, he definitely is not showing it.
What I see is, and I hear about it every week, when I'm home, I think Americans want smaller, more effective government. They want a strong national security. They want a secure border. And they don't want this avalanche of spending that we've seen, particularly since the pandemic, and 100% of what we've seen in the Biden administration. And they want to rein in this deficit spending and try to get the core functions of the government under control.
Hill and Jones faced off last week in a televised debate. Arkansas PBS hosted candidates in all 4 congressional contests, allowing them to make their cases to voters. The Democrat-Gazette has recaps of each debate at its website, arkansasonline.com. Arkansas PBS has also made the debates available to watch on its YouTube page. And that'll do it for this edition of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of October 13th, 2024. You can stay up to date with all news involving Arkansas at arkansasonline.com. You can get in touch with me on social media. My handle is @AlexHouseThomas. Special thanks, as always, to the team down in Little Rock. I'm Alex Thomas, and this has been Arkies in the Beltway. Thanks for listening.